Broadcasting to you live from the Orion spiral arm of the Milky Way galaxy, the solar system planet Earth, North America, the United States of America, somewhere outside of Tehran. My name is Brian Engelman. Today is the first day of March 2026. And this is normally where I will snap up to the corner of the screen and say, this is the TNAM Daily Show. But you know what? We're going to do a special episode. It'll be the Agree to Disagree show. We haven't done one of those in a while. And that's, of course, right here on the new American media, because the old American media has failed you. Yes, for 15 years, roughly about 14 years, every time we did our news show here at the new American media, it was called the Agree to Disagree show. About a year, maybe a year and a half ago, I decided to split it off. The TNAM Daily Show was unpacking the news. We say we're a bunch of trash pandas. We're raccoons knocking over the garbage can, rifling through the rubbish, separating fake news from fact. And that's what we do. We scroll through the news there. And now on the Agree to Disagree show, we bring in a guest and we do a deep dive on topics that matter, or a hodgepodge of a variety of topics that matter, because TNAM also stands for The News Always Matters. And this is a program, a special program. I'm very much, let's just say I'm very excited to get this one going. And in all transparency, to let everybody know, I've been trying to book this, trying to book it for many weeks now. It's all on me. And I've been trying to make sure that both of these two guests would be available at the exact same time, because they're going to give you perspective that will be informative, challenging, enlightening, triggering, all the things, all the fun things. We're here to talk about it. I don't have all of the context that these two gentlemen have. We're going to bring in Mahmoud Ghaffari, who used to live in Iran and has been living in the United States for quite some time now. And man, you're going to hear some stories and hear some insight that will kind of give you a little bit of the background that you need on this story. We're digging through the rubbish, and there's some easy takes. There's a couple of real easy takes, but there's a lot of nuance. And so my second guest today is Pastor Bruce Engelman. Yes, you know that last name, that famous, fantastic last name that I share. It is my father's brother, and he's been a pastor and a historical religious scholar for decades and decades. And this whole Iranian story, this goes way back deeper than President Trump. No, it's not even about this Ayatollah. This isn't even necessarily about Islam, although it is now. It's about so much more. So without further delay, we've got a great show planned. So buckle up, grab your favorite beverage. And also, we will look through our chat. If you have something to say, drop your comments in, and I will often put them at the bottom of the screen. So contribute to this show with your thoughts, your questions, your clapback, your pushback, your agreements. And without further delay now, the Agree to Disagree show begins.
Your guide to the truth, the new AmericanMedia.com.
All right, everybody. Thank you for being here. Before we get this thing going, let me just tell you that we are out there on all of these platforms. I want to make sure you're following the New American Media. We're on Patreon. You can sign up to become a monthly subscriber. Thank you to everybody who has. And if you just want to become a free subscriber, you can do that on Patreon. It's yet another way we can deliver information to you if/when we get censored by Facebook, Instagram, Meta, YouTube, Google, again, or Twitter before Elon bought it and saved free speech, which is probably more monumental to the history of mankind than we fully realize and recognize at this moment because we're too close to it. It was massive what happened. But please follow us on Patreon at The New American Media. You can also go on Rumble and YouTube. There are monthly subscriptions as well as Rumble rant tips and super chat tips if you want to support the program, because we don't really do ad reads at this moment. It's all fully crowdfunded. So it's the advertising revenue and it's your kind donations. So please consider helping us out and at least subscribing on Rumble and YouTube. We're also on Venmo and Cash App. That's just my name, Brian Engelman. PayPal is fuzzinstallment@yahoo.com, scrolling at the bottom of the screen. But really, go on any major platform, including Instagram. We're only a couple followers away from re-engaging our live function. They took it away at some point because Meta's a terrible company that loves censoring people that are pushing for freedom and truth. They don't like that. But we're almost to the point of rebuilding our brand on that platform, just like we did on YouTube. We were demonetized, deplatformed, shadow banned, censored into oblivion for 5 years, talking about COVID, the rigged 2020 election, all of that stuff. But please find The New American Media in all the places so that we can stay connected in between these episodes. I'd like to welcome in Brother Mahmoud Ghaffari from Los Angeles, California. Mahmoud, thank you for joining us.
Good to be here.
So happy to have you. Let's bring in our second guest. This is Pastor Bruce Engelman. There he is with his Make America Great Again hat. How you doing, sir?
Doing fine, sir. How are you today?
I'm living the dream. I don't have the historical context that you guys have on Iran. I just don't. I can sing the John McCain song, "Bomb, bomb, 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 Iran." Okay, and then that also became a catchphrase for the neocon forever wars in the Middle East. But I don't know exactly what I want to know, and I'm like, guys, please, it help me understand what's going on. Mahmoud, let me start with you. Thank you so much for being here. Start off however you would like to start off. We could go a million directions.
All right. Well, it's good to see you after many years, Brian, in a different context, and I appreciate you inviting me to be part of this discussion today. Let me first say that song I first heard in 1980. Now, it's a song from the 60s. Of course, I'd heard the original part of it, but the bomb part of it was in 1980 when the hostages were taken in Iran, and most of us who disagreed with that revolution and that regime liked it. And look, 47 years later, it came to reality. Mm-hmm. We in America started in the centers of demonic power in Iran. So I just wanted to start with that song has resonated truth so many years later, and it's appropriate.
Bruce, let me throw it to you here. Take it at the very beginning point that we're a day into this thing now, trying to process what occurred. Take it where you will, sir.
Well, thank you. I want to thank you, Brian, for having me on your great show. It is indeed an honor, and it's wonderful to meet Mahmoud, and a double honor to have him on the show with us today as well. I'm going to state the obvious to kick this off. Obvious statement number one. Basic observation number one. Thank God Kamala Harris is not president.
Wow.
Statement number two.
True.
Statement number two. It's about time. I've been crying for this for 47 years to release and liberate the Persian people. By the way, the Persian people are, number one, they're not Arabs, and number two, they're pro-Western, and number three, just like your guest today, they are great people. It's one reason why, I guess one of the reasons why every president, other than maybe Reagan, he toyed with the idea. Every president since Jimmy Carter, including President Carter, has kicked the can down the road. They've kicked the can down the proverbial alley, not wanting to deal with Iran. And thank God we finally got a man in the White House who A, is a man, and B, cares about disarming their nuclear regiment. So that's the obvious. I'll kick it off with that.
Perfect. And you brought her up, so let's go to the cackling hen herself, because we want to know what the leader of the Democrat Party allegedly is, if they have a leader. Kamala Harris, what did she have? What are her thoughts on what's going on? How close were we to this becoming our reality with Kamala as our commander in chief? Let's take a listen.
Before I go in, I want to address what we learned today. Donald Trump has dragged us into a war the American people do not want. He has put American troops in harm's way. I unequivocally oppose this war of choice, and everyone should. And the bottom line, when it comes down to it, is that if we want to stop Donald Trump with this random decision that he has arrived at, then Congress must act, and Congress must act immediately. The American people do not want our sons and daughters to go into this unauthorized war of choice, and I unequivocally oppose it. Thank you.
By the way, so you're going to hear that phrase, war of choice. You can tell that that was battle tested with their PR teams based on how she repeated it 2 or 3 times. Maybe her earpiece, her earrings were talking to her, reminding her, say, war of choice, war of choice, war of choice. So there's a lot to unpack there, that it was a random, that it's war of choice. And Mahmoud,
let me add something to what the Democrats are talking about and what the pastor brought up so eloquently. When President Carter started agreeing with the revolution, supported Ayatollah Khomeini, he sent $230 million cash to his campaign before he even came into Iran to take the helm, right? So a Democratic president helped a demon come into power with American dollars. That's number one. And number two, another Democratic president, Barack Hussein Obama, sent pallets of cash. Now, this is recorded history. This is not hearsay. On an airplane, $150 billion of American dollars to the Iranian regime. And where did it get spent? On Hamas and Hezbollah and other groups in the Middle East, in particular the ones in Afghanistan and Pakistan. Today, that's a different subject. We could talk about the war that started between the two of them, which is probably a good thing because it gets those two countries, in their own quagmire before they can send any troops into Iran. But, Democrats have for decades supported this regime one way or the other. And finally, the man of the hour comes along, not a politician, but a man who thinks straight and knows that this enemy has to be defeated one way or another, and he's done it. And I say he's done it because even though it's the second day of the war, but this war seems to have an end within a few weeks. We're not going to say days or months or years, but within a few weeks, when the Iranian population actually comes into the street, and they will, end this war, if you want to call it, and take their destiny into their own hands, but with the help of the Americans, the Israelis, and President Trump.
And by the way, the transfer there, according to Grok, just to kind of get it squared away, it allegedly a $1.7 billion settlement resolving decades-old dispute from 1979, pre-79 arms deal, where Iran, under the Shah, paid for the U.S. military equipment that was never delivered after the Islamic Revolution. The U.S. had a $400 million principal in a trust fund, allegedly, to $1.3 billion, blah, 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 blah. So whether it was legitimately, not legitimately, whether it was literally pallets of cash or it was transferring Swiss francs, there's it's all sort of murky when you get into the deep state money laundering, as Doge has figured out. Once you scramble the eggs, it's hard to tell the yolk from the rest. So, Pastor Bruce, let me pass it to you here now. Obviously, 3 American servicemen have been killed in this operation already. So it's not just as easy as pressing a button and saying we win. There are legitimate concerns that our countrymen are going to fight somebody else's war. The U.S. is a puppet of Israel. That's what you'll hear every day. Netanyahu has Trump by the balls. He's compromised on the Epstein list. You hear a million variations of this. The U.S. has been a tool of the Rothschilds since 1948, all of these things. The fact of the matter is, with all of those theories and all of these assertions being made, we are in a war now. And Congress acted. And, well, I'm sorry, Congress did not act. The president acted. And that's within a precedent that many presidents have used in the past. But you see Kamala Harris jumping out to try to crucify President Trump over this. And we can say crucify over this. Mahmoud is saying demonic regime of 79. I think there is something about good and evil that's happening. But jumping into another holy war, that's something that really starts to churn the stomachs of Americans and really humans across the planet. So all of those things being said, what do you say about what Kamala Harris had to say and where we're at now that this has begun?
Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, even according to some of their own associates, have never made an accurate or right or correct decision on foreign policy in their military and or political careers. So let me say that. Number two,
but before you get to number two, but I just have to add, Kamala Harris was our border czar. And according to Mayorkas and Biden, we've never had a more secure southern border in America's history. So I don't know. Are you giving us fake news, Pastor Bruce?
Could I just quote the great senator from Louisiana, John Kennedy?
Oh, he's great.
He's great. People like, quote, people like AOC and Kamala Harris, they are the reason there are directions on a shampoo bottle, quote unquote. Kamala Harris, I'm tired of beating around the bush and being political.
We have a pause. Oh, wait a minute. Kamala. Maybe the deep state's really pulling for Kamala.
All right.
Pausing the Pastor Bruce here. He was doing so well until he evoked the name of Kamala Harris. Maybe I'll take a blame for that. Mahmoud, jump in.
That reminds me of when the Iranian government actually cuts the internet when all like people talking on there. So maybe, there's a deep state here that it's gotten the pastor. But let me go back to what the pastor was saying about the relationship of the Persians and the Jews. You know, the Persian tribe at the time and the Jewish tribe, their relationship goes back 2,500 years ago. During the time of Cyrus the Great.
The Persian people and the Jews.
And the Jewish people, right?
500 years ago.
Right? These two tribes at the time, the Persian tribe, the Parsis, as we call them, and the Jews were friends. Jews by the thousands lived in the then Persian Empire. And Zerubbabel, their religious leader, went to Cyrus and asked to get back all of the treasury, the treasures they had that was housed in the treasury of the Persian kingdom. And then Cyrus agreed that they should go back to their homeland, and he promised that all of that treasure, including the Ark of the Covenant, if you believe in that, those stories, that it should be given back to them. And it was given, and paid for rebuilding of the second wall of the temple. So this connection between the Jews and the Persians has a long history. And you see that today in the streets of Tehran, where they come out chanting that the religious leader is killed, but they're actually rooting for Prime Minister Netanyahu. They call him the next prophet. That talks volumes of where that country sits today in terms of the hatred that they have for the current regime. When they're rooting for a country supposedly that's come and bombed every institution they have, yet the population out in the street, and we see that in clips time and again, that thousands, if not millions, it's very hard to get information that's trickling out of Iran right now. In many mega cities are coming into streets and in celebration of the death of a leader and thanking another country and its leadership. So just wanted to mention that when the pastor talked about the relationship.
And that's interesting, because in this country we hear the leftists and some of the libertarians and constitutionalists refer to Netanyahu as Satan-Yahu. They think that he's just an absolute madman, war hawk, and he's trying to create a greater Israel and sweep up a whole bunch of territory and start a world conquest, and that he's a bloodthirsty maniac. And you're saying Iranians think that Netanyahu could be, what did you call him, the next prophet or prophet?
Yeah, they called him a prophet. Actually, they call him the second Moses.
Really?
To free Iran. Yeah.
It's
You got to listen to the chants that coming out of it. And the diaspora too.
You hear one version of a story, but you might not hear like the
other one.
It's so important to start hearing from people, because every Iranian that I know is beyond thrilled that this has happened.
Oh yeah, and thankful for both countries doing it. Had you seen clips of 2 weeks ago when there was this mass demonstration in downtown Los Angeles, of which I was a part of? You saw more U.S. and Israeli flags than you saw the Iranian lion and sun flag. Now, the lion and sun is the emblem of the old regime, and it's one way of people actually fighting this current regime and this current flag. So there was more Israeli and U.S. flags there than any other one. So it shows you, how connected and how appreciative we are for what America is doing. America is Israel. Let's not kid ourselves. They're putting their sons and daughters in danger. Case in point, the 3 Americans that perished. And we're sad about that. And in due time, we're gonna make sure that proper appreciation is given to them in Iran. But that's what they're doing. They're doing the world a service, not just the Iranians.
Well, Pastor Bruce, are you there? You appear to be frozen. We're trying to get connection. There we go. I think we have you back.
Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes, we can hear you. Let me throw it to you there. You left off at shampoo bottle because you were going to address Kamala Harris. What he was just saying, we can get back to shampoo in a second, but we were talking about how Netanyahu is viewed in different places, because in America, the American left or libertarians or constitutionalists might look at Netanyahu and call him Satanyahu. And Mahmoud was just saying that he's viewed as a prophet.
Prophet.
As a prophet.
Well, the second prophet. They call him, the second prophet Moses, that's come to be the savior of the Iranians. And you got to understand, this is giving back a favor. Pastor Bruce knows about this, but again, thousands of years ago, it was Cyrus who freed the Jews from Babylon to go back to their homeland. And Prime Minister Netanyahu has mentioned in many of his speech that we're giving back that favor to you Persians again. And we're all appreciative of that. So
interesting. All right. So Pastor Bruce, you froze up and you're back. So take it wherever you'd like to take it. So many angles.
Yes. Actually, my system overheated from the Texas sun. It's about 80 degrees here.
Oh.
But yes, he's correct, Cyrus. And recently, within the last 48 hours, many of the Jews and Israelis and Hebrews and even Persians are saying that he is going to go down in history, he being President Trump, as not only the next Cyrus or the new Cyrus, but he's going to go down for the next 1,000 years as the greatest leader or friend to Israel and the Jewish people since Abraham. And by the way, the word Abraham means friend of God.
Yes.
He's going to go down in history in mythic proportions for the next 1,000 years. Donald J. Trump.
Yep.
He will be thanked. He will be thanked for a millennium, and what the chatter is all over the TV right now. Even a lot of the MAGA people are upset, and of course, the MAGA people have never been enthralled with Benjamin Netanyahu anyway. But they're upset because they feel this goes against President Trump's pledge of no protracted wars. Well, first of all, he does not need Congress's approval. That is unconstitutional. 1973, Congress passed a resolution called the War Powers Act because they thought that Nixon was in Vietnam too long. That is unconstitutional. We have a commander-in-chief, and it isn't, let me use bad grammar for emphasis, it ain't Kamala Harris. And thank God it ain't Chuck Mafia Boy Schumer. And double thank God it's not that idiot Benedict Arnold from Arizona who thinks he's a reincarnation of General Patton Stonewall Jackson. He needs to keep his big mouth shut, and he is the biggest traitor since Benedict Arnold. What's that name? Senator Mark
Kelly, astronaut Kelly.
Yeah, Mark Kelly needs to keep his big mouth shut. He's a traitor. He should be tried, just like Pete Hegseth said. He should be tried in a military tribunal. We may not be at a war right now in the traditional sense. By the way, war has not been declared in this country since World War II, December 8th, 1941, and we just declared it against Japan. We didn't declare it against Germany right away. The point being is we have a mandate to protect the United States from nuclear attack. They said 9/11, they said 9/11, something like that could never happen. Well, guess what? It happened. And we don't need a Hiroshima in the United States or a Nagasaki in North America to say, oops, Trump was right. Doggone it. We finally got a leader who has some kahunas and some guts. We need to stand behind him. I'm calling on the MAGA movement to tell that so-called senator in Arizona to keep his mouth shut, and to call your congressman and call your U.S. senators across the nation and say, we support President Trump. We're praying for the troops. I'm sick of the left saying, and the Democratic Party, well, we support the effort, but we don't, and the troops, but we don't support the war. That is the most ridiculous, asinine statement I've ever heard. When I was over in Israel as a consultant to the IDF forces a number of years ago, a great point was made by the vice, we called him Boogie. And the vice president of Israel told us, Iran says they need nuclear equipment for energy. And I've not heard anybody in the news say this, nobody. But the vice president of Israel said, when I was over there the first time about 12 years ago, he goes, why do they need energy? There's more oil in Iran than any other nation. They don't need nuclear equipment and nuclear fission for energy. They got all the oil and natural gas they could ever dream of using. They want it to do what they said they want to do, and that's to obliterate Israel, the little Satan, and America, the big Satan. Hasn't Pearl Harbor taught us anything? Hasn't 9/11 taught us anything? The USS Maine in World War I, the White House in 1812, on and on, the Alamo. I mean, on and on and on. We need to cut the snake at the head. One of the journalists in Israel said today, President Trump has.
We lost the pastor again. Brian, let me step in and add to something that the pastor was talking about. He's so right in that determination. Just imagine if the regime did have nuclear power or nuclear warheads, which they were close to getting 5 months ago before the 12-day war. Look what they would have done today. Look at all the missiles they're unleashing on the Persian Gulf states, Bahrain, Kuwait, Iraq, and into Israel. And this is on their deathbed. Just can you imagine if any one of them had a warhead on it? A regime that knows it's on its dying days and it's going to go out of existence, they're going to say, well, we're going to take them with us if we're going to go, right? That's the mindset they have. So we were right 5 months ago. We were right today. We're going to be right tomorrow that we do whatever is necessary to make sure this evil regime is gone. And something else I wanted to add as we're talking about the Persians and or Cyrus and President Trump. President Trump in his first presidency went to Jerusalem. You know, that's when he changed, when he transported the embassy from Jerusalem to Tel Aviv, or the other way, Tel Aviv to Jerusalem.
And that was something that everybody had talked about, president by president, by president, and nobody would. And he's like, "Yeah, let's do it."
Right.
Oh, we're sick of Maduro, and he might be rigging elections across the planet.
And we did it.
Let's go get him. Okay, Trump does things. Other people, they just
talk about it.
Yeah,
and in appreciation to that, and this was at the time when the first Iranian revolution had started. You know, the Woman Life Freedom. This is about 4 years ago when it had started or was ended. Prime Minister Netanyahu gave a gift to President Trump. It was a gold coin, and it's all over the news. You can fact check it, but it's the truth. Gold coin. On one side was the image of President Trump, On the other, it was a image of Cyrus the Great. So to the Israelis, even what he was giving the message is to us, President Trump, you're the Cyrus. You're going to save us as Cyrus saved us the first time. So I just wanted to mention that when Pastor was talking about a coin, this was given as a gift to him.
Well, let's take this chance to maybe walk back to your lineage, how you grew up, and your connection to this, because there's there's so much there. Take us from the beginning and how you had your familial connections to the shift, the overthrow in 1979, because this backstory is just fascinating to me.
I appreciate bring that up. So, my father, my uncle, their uncles, their father, they all worked for the Shah and his father and in the previous dynasties, as it may. So my father was the chief of staff to the Shah towards the last year of his reign. Before that, he was the chief of staff to the prime minister. Uncle was the president of the Iranian Oil Company in America. Their uncle was one of the founding members of United Nations in 1945, and then the first representative of Iran in the United Nations. In fact, in 1945 or 6, Iran was the first country to recognize the state of Israel and its right to exist. For over a decade, even more, no other country in the Middle East region had recognized that, but Iran was the first one to recognize that. And, the poor chap paid for that with his life during the revolution where he was executed, for lack of a better word. So that's just in a quick bit, my relationship with at least my family's relationship with the Shah. And then, of course, during the 1979 revolution, our high school was closed down. I used to go to an American high school. And because of that, we had to emigrate out of the country, went to Europe for 2 years, and then was fortunate enough to be able to come to this country. And I've been here for 44 years. And I wouldn't trade it for anything else. Nothing. I'm so appreciative to be here as an immigrant. And I'm so appreciative for the opportunities that was given me. And I hope every Democrat or every immigrant of any country realizes that what we have in this country and what the rest of the world has. You may think things are bad here, but
I think we're playing revolving chairs on which feed is going to pause. Mahmoud is paused here. Hey, you know what? When you start talking about things they don't want you to talk about, these things occur from time to time, but I digress. Pastor Bruce, take it away wherever you would like.
Yes. Daniel had a prayer going out, and it was intercepted by the Prince of Persia. And when your guest comes back online, I would like to ask if he remembers what Richard Nixon, he was talking about the Shah, how Richard Nixon described the Shah of Iran. And there's some talk now they may install his son. I don't see that happening personally. I don't think he has any support or much support. Most of his support is in the United States. But I want to go back to what I said earlier in the broadcast, Brian, and that is the Persians are great people. See, we got countries like Somalia, where the government, such as it is, hates our guts, and the people really hate our guts. What they're doing in Minnesota, I have no idea. Well, I do. Tampon Tim needs money. But the Brazilian people hate Americans, the people, not just the government, the people. And there's exceptions. But the Persians love Americans, and they love Jews too. Prior to the Shah of Iran being deposed, Israelites and Persians got along well together. Persians and the Jews got along very well together. And look, they're marching together in France today, in London, in San Francisco. The Jews and the Persians are celebrating this. Yet we got MAGA people, we got Tucker Carlson, we got all these people that are armchair quarterbacking the commander-in-chief since George Washington. I'm quite frankly sick of it.
Not a fan. Not a fan of how it's being played out. I mean, look, Ron Paul had been warning us constantly about the quagmire of getting drawn into foreign affairs. That resonates with me deeply. Why should Americans care about this? Why is this our battle? And why isn't this Netanyahu pulling the puppet strings? Maybe he has compromat on President Trump from the Epstein files. Epstein being a Mossad agent for all these years, ensnaring every president since who knows how far back you got to go. This Epstein guy that looks like Easter Island head, he was doing it since Iran-Contra. So basically Clinton and beyond. Why is this something Americans need to get involved with? Yes, they were close to getting a nuclear weapon. We've heard this every single year from Netanyahu. He's been a broken record for 30 years. We know. But talk to the people that don't want Americans to jump into this.
Yes, I'd be glad to. I do not believe at this point President Trump has any suggestion or goal or vision or plan to put boots on the ground. You know, when a Democrat does this garbage, like Bill Clinton bombing the wrong side in Bosnia, hello. Oh, they said it was wonderful to have an aerial war with no fatalities on the ground. But when it's a Republican president, oh my goodness. And he's going to drag us into another quagmire. Again, bad grammar on.
We're having some freezing issues with connectivity today. I got to tell you, I've been a little frustrated with research. I can. You froze
Brian?
for a little bit there. Still waiting to get Mahmoud to jump back.
Freeze.
I got you loud and clear right now.
You know, let me just say, there might be some demonic activity going on here that somebody does not want us to hear what we are saying, the three of us. And then that's on the spiritual side. On the espionage side, there might be somebody not wanting us to get out our message today.
Which is why it's so important that we do.
Yes.
So to the people,
another question.
Yeah, exactly. But look, it resonates with me deeply. The laissez-faire, the stay out of, don't get in some foreign entanglements, don't get into a quagmire, forever war, all this stuff. And then of course there's the power vacuum. What happens when, okay, fine, you take out a bad guy. Well, then what comes in there next? It could be even worse. You hear Mark Levin, one of the loudest Zionist advocates, along with Ben Shapiro, and there's a litany, a laundry list of Lindsey Grahams. You know, they really want to control what's happening in almost every country over there. And of course, that's what foreign policy is. You want to have good relationships and work together instead of have it adversarial, where for 50 years they're promising to kill you. There's a phrase where if someone tells you what they want to do, maybe you should believe them. So how do we unpack this? Because Trump was very critical of Mr. Drone Strike Barack Hussein Obama. He very critical and often said, hey, I bet you Obama is going to try to do something in Iran. Very different, though, because it seemed like Obama was being controlled by the Muslim Brotherhood and definitely had some different allegiances, it seemed to many. President Trump made it seem like he wasn't going to do something like this. Why, in your estimation, do you think he changed if it wasn't because of compromising material from the Epstein list? That when President Trump repeatedly says, there's nothing here, it's a hoax, Pam Bondi, there's no file. The files are on my desk. There are no files. Kash Patel goes, look, we're not going to re-victimize those women by releasing those files. Also, there are no files. It just feels weird. And then we go and bomb the nuclear facilities. And then we go and take out the leader of Iran. You go, are we just being led around on a leash by this guy? So any direction you want to take it, these are the things I'm hearing on a daily basis.
Two reasons. My sources are telling me that Iran may have been 2.5 weeks away from getting a full nuclear arsenal, which they promised to use against the United States and Israel, at least against our military bases. Number two, the time to strike was now to liberate these wonderful Persian people. And then number three, and this is my opinion, number three, Brian, they have been responsible for 79 to 89% of all terrorist attacks around the globe for the last 47 years. I heard an expert today on the news saying 100%, that directly or indirectly, they have been behind 100% of the terrorist attacks. Go all the way back to the Kabul Towers, go back to the Marine Barracks under Reagan, go back to you name it, the attacks in Bali, just on and on. Iran has its fingerprints on all of them. They have to be stopped, and they have to be stopped now. They showed a montage of all the presidents all the way back to Carter. We can't, Jimmy Carter, we can't have a Iran with nuclear warheads. And then they did, they did Ronald Reagan, and they did George Bush 41 and 43, and Clinton, and Biden and Obama. Everyone said we cannot allow Iran to have nuclear weapons, but none of them did anything about it.
Correct. They just
finally got a president.
They allowed the threats, the non-stop threats, and the exportation of militants to go cause chaos. How many? I mean, pick a place. There's not a single place that was off limits from the Islamic terror attacks. Not a single place. A church wasn't off limits. Movie theaters, concerts, cafes, grocery stores, hotels,
pizza parlors,
anything everywhere. And that's been the MO of this new modern caliphate. And Iran has been a huge part of this the whole time.
They really have. They've been the number one state sponsor of terrorism. They are the most vicious, evil, bloodthirsty government since World War II. And I would suggest that in some ways, if it's possible, they've even been worse. The Ayatollah Khomeini and the Ayatollah Khamenei have been worse than the Axis back in World War II with Mussolini, Tojo, and Hitler. These people are savage. In the last 3 weeks, Brian, they have killed 400 of their own people.
Oh, I mean, the number I've heard 20, 30, 40,000 or more.
I'm being ultra conservative.
Yeah.
I'm saying we can prove that in the last few weeks, there have been 400 people slaughtered on the streets of Tehran during peaceful protests. This is a regime that doesn't care about the Kurds. They don't care about their own people. They don't even care about the Arabs. And they are a demonic, diabolical, evil theocracy in the worst possible sense. They had to be stopped. As far as President Trump being a puppet of Netanyahu, I don't buy that. Trump is not a puppet of anybody. And let me remind everybody, they've tried to kill him 5 times. 5 times that we know of. And there are many, many more attempts on his life that we don't know about. And they're still trying to kill him. And if they can't get to him, they'll kill Charlie Kirk or try to get J.D. Vance. Trump has nothing to lose. And I'll tell you something else. Israel always does our bidding. Maybe one time, maybe it's time once in history that we fight side by side with Israel. That's just my opinion. Of course, I'm so pro-Israeli, it's pathetic. I love Israel. I love the Jews. Is their government perfect? No. Does Netanyahu make mistakes? Yes. Is he a politician? Yes. But Trump loves the Persian people and the Jews. And I think the timing was perfect to strike now. And how many warnings did he give them to disarm? 2 weeks ago, if they would have just laid, or a week ago, if they would have laid down their arms, and promised not to have nuclear weapons and allowed inspections, none of this would happen. Iran has nobody to blame but themselves. I'm talking about the government, not the people. But it's time for the Persians worldwide, and especially in Tehran, to get up and overthrow this wicked government. They've lost 40 of their administrators, from the Ayatollah Khamenei and the Minister of Defense all the way down to the janitor. So the time to strike for the people is now. They'll never have another opportunity like this again. And they've always been the thorn in the side of the Middle East. If we could bring some stability to Persia and Iran, it's only going to help Israel and the United States and every other country over there. I have said for 40 years, Brian, the big problem over there was never Afghanistan and Iraq, and that's part of the problem. The wrong nations were attacked. Well, Afghanistan because they had, the Taliban. But the problem for the last 50 years has been Saudi Arabia, Syria, and Iran. Nobody wants to deal with the elephant in the room. Well, we finally got a commander-in-chief who's dealing with the elephant in the room. And right now, he doesn't need a bunch of second guessers, especially from the far right. Am I for protracted wars? No. I used to be a hawk. I'm a peacenik now because I see how stupid war is. I wanted to go to your uncle wanted to go to a military academy. I wanted to be a career officer in the Army, the Navy, or the Marine Corps. I've tried to enlist twice. Never worked out. By the way, these three that were killed today, that hits home because I was a chaplain, stateside, temporary chaplain, commissioned by Major Joyce Houston out of Rickenbacker Air Force Base. I was to go to the door and the house of every casualty in Desert Shield, Desert Storm, the first few nights of the attack. Thank God, even though we did the refueling for every sortie, we had one guy break his thumb. There were no serious injuries or deaths. Thank God. So my heart bleeds and is pained right now for the parents and spouses of those three servicemen killed. But you know what? We have 3 or 4 servicemen killed every other month in training exercises. We try to dodge airplanes in military helicopters over Reagan Airport. So as terrible as it is, and my heart is broken, and I shed tears today. 3 casualties in an attack, in an invasion like this, it's a miracle.
And it just makes you wonder what was going on all those other years where trillions of dollars were just being money laundered and routed through God knows where for God knows what purpose, tens of thousands of casualties. It's almost like if you wanted to close the border, all you had to do was close the border. It's almost like if you wanted to stop a tyrannical, murderous, demonic regime, all you had to do was stop a murderous, tyrannical, demonic regime. That the answers were always sitting right there. And it just makes you think whether Bush, Obama, Clinton, other Bush, Carter, I mean, let's go back to JFK, let's go back to Woodrow Wilson if we want. Like, did any of these people actually want to do anything, or it's just they're going for cover stories to make it look like they're taking action when in reality they know damn well that they're not trying to make things happen. I mean, maybe it took a non-politician to become an effective CEO of America, perhaps.
Absolutely. May we remind everybody, Brian, President Trump is a businessman. He is not a politician. He is not a lawyer, thank God. Some of my best friends are lawyers. I love lawyers. I love the courtroom battles and so forth. But in terms of Washington, and in our case, Austin, Texas, we have far too many attorneys and lawyers running this government. We need some more businessmen like a Ross Perot or like this guy, Donald J. Trump, to get things done and to quit worrying about wetting your finger and testing the political airs and waters. We need people that are leaders. In my lifetime, there have been some good presidents. Eisenhower, very good. Nixon, good. But there have been 3 transformative presidents, Brian, and you and I have talked about this before. These were 3 guys that turned their salaries back in. These were 3 guys that fought for their country in one form or another. And these were 3 guys, three Irishmen who were, all they wanted to do was cut taxes, fight the commies back, and make America great again. John F. Kennedy, Ronald Reagan, and Donald J. Trump. And guess what? All three of them have got themselves shot. They don't shoot the bad presidents. They don't shoot the non-transformative presidents. They don't shoot the non-consequential presidents. They only shoot at the great presidents. Yes, Kennedy was a great president, even though he was a Democrat. And I didn't agree with everything Kennedy did. And I'm not talking about his personal life. We don't know about that for sure. But I'm saying, in terms of transformation and consequence, in my lifetime, since the 50s, the three most impactful presidents and influential presidents that loved this country and were patriotic and had business backgrounds were JFK, Ronald Reagan, and Donald J. Trump. And I don't know if there'd be an America today without those three men. And all three of them paid. By the way, this Gomer Pyle from Arizona, he said today, well, Trump never fought in the army. He was never in the Navy. He should have no right to start a war like this. Well, you know what, Senator Mark? By the way, you need to get a wig, buddy. You don't look good. He's the most ghoulish looking man since the spawn of Satan. But you know what?
Him and Mayorkas look like they were poured from the same cast, right? Like you dump the same silicon mold and you knock both of these. They look but it's not even so much what they look like. It's that they act the way that they look. They look like little gremlins, little ghouls, little creatures, gargoyles. That's the phrase I'm looking for. They both look like gargoyles, but more so they act like gargoyles.
Yeah, it's a good point. It's really not their looks or their countenance. They can't help that to some extent. Yeah, they're evil. They never tell the truth. And but anyway, Senator Mark from Arizona, President Trump had his head almost blown off in Butler. To me, that's more than enough military service as our commander in chief. Guys like you and Tampon Tim, I don't think Tampon Tim ever got off the base in Minnesota, did he? But all these armchair quarterbacks, like what is Mark's last name again? I try to forget it.
It's Mark Kelly, but I think Tim Walz was accused of being seriously accused of some stuff. Let me see if I can find some of that while we talk. But Mark Kelly,
yeah. Mark Kelly is the biggest traitor in this country since Benedict Arnold. He needs to keep his big trap shut and maybe get a wig and have some plastic surgery and go to Sunday school and get saved. Because the man is the spawn of Satan and he's a traitor. And we don't need his armchair quarterbacking. Senator Kelly, you are not General Patton or Stonewall Jackson or Omar Bradley or Blackjack Pershing or Chesty Puller. At best, you're a glorified Gomer Pyle. Put that in your peace pipe and smoke it, Kelly.
What specifically is he saying right now? He's just specifically doing what all the Democrats are doing, trying to nail Trump on this, just trying to take him down.
Well, he's telling the troops not to obey the commander in chief, number one. And number two, he is saying in the last 24 hours that President Trump has no moral authority to start a war because he never served in the armed forces, quote unquote. They didn't say that about Bill Clinton, did they? All of a sudden, all these liberals like Mark Kelly, they thought Bill Clinton was the greatest since sliced bread, even though he was a draft dodger. They don't want to debate me because they can't win in a debate. I'll debate any one of these schlunks of either party, including the rhinos, and I can prove that the election was stolen. Of course, you can too. That's a no-brainer, right?
Yeah, well,
Terry Garr was a goyle. Terry Garr, there was a woman that used to sell hot dogs in the square in downtown Fort Worth in front of the courthouse. I told her, I said, "You related to Terry Garr?" I said, "You could be her twin sister." Man, she had good Frankfurters that she was selling there too on her little stainless steel push cart. But remember Tootsie?
Uh-huh.
What a funny that's when movies were actually funny. Hey, Colbert's biting the bullet, and so is Jimmy Kimmel. We're finally getting rid of those creeps, non-funny creeps. I've never laughed at one joke those idiots ever said.
I mean,
I'm getting off on a rabbit trail. But
I know Kenneth has a tendency to do that with us. We appreciate you for that, Kenneth.
Yes, we do.
Yeah, I thought Colbert was funny as he was trying to play the Bill O'Reilly role on the Colbert Report. He's been miserable, and Jimmy. No, I liked Stephen Colbert on the Colbert Report. It was funny, but like he was almost like Archie Bunker. They were trying to write it so like he was dumb and he was the butt of the jokes, but like half the time you're like, no, like maybe 70-80% of the time you're like, yeah, Archie, that's a dude. He became like, he's like, that's the one you listen. Obviously, he's supposed to be over the top, but like even Stephen Colbert playing the Bill O'Reilly character was likable and it was funny. It hasn't been funny in years. And I used to like Jimmy Kimmel too when it was man show stuff and maybe early days. But yeah, and Bruce, that speaks to what legacy media has done. It's maybe always been this way, but it's always anti-Republican, anti-MAGA, anti-Trump, anti-conservative, like that narrative, that script goes out. They are the puppets and they read their script. They do as they're told. And none of the media has been backing the other side, at least in my lifetime. Do you remember a time that media was fair and balanced? Do you remember a time in your life where media wasn't a constant left-wing hit job against the right?
I do.
Because that also goes into how this event is being covered, how every event of the Trump administration is being covered. All negative if it can hurt him. Regardless of making good points on both sides, they will ignore the good points and only give you the rage bait to try to get their base riled up and fired up.
Right. Now, Dan Rather, I worked with Dan Rather. I covered the debate with him in Cleveland, presidential debate. He's always been a hack for the Democratic Party. But yeah, there were some great journalists. They were all liberal Democrats or independent liberals, but they were fair and balanced. Tom Snyder was a great interviewer for NBC News in New York and later the Tomorrow Show. He was tough on liberals and Democrats and conservatives. In fact, he was tougher on liberals more so than he was on the conservatives and Republicans. Mike Wallace, phenomenal interviewer, and he exonerated the security guard in Atlanta during the Olympic bombings when everybody else in the media had already incriminated him ahead of a trial. Yes, I remember when people like Eric Severide and Mike Wallace and Tom Snyder and David Brinkley and Chet Huntley were true journalists, not these hacks today on MSNBC. Speaking of countenance, you talk about, I know it's not politically correct, but what have I ever been, PC? Mental retardation in Java Joe. What's that idiot in the morning that used to be a Republican congressman on MSNBC?
It's so hard to believe that Joe Scarborough used to be a Republican.
Scarborough. Yeah.
That is
a conservative Republican.
Astonishing to think about.
A demon got a hold of him. But I mean, that guy, you could tell he's got mental illness. Just look at his face. These people are not only devil possessed, Brian, they're demented. They're deranged. Not just with Trump derangement syndrome, but mental illness of the highest level. These people are sociopaths and or psychopaths. Trump could find a cure to cancer, bring peace to every nation in the world, win 100 Nobel Peace Prizes, ha ha ha, and they would still be against everything he's for. You know what? They're jealous. They are jealous because we finally got a president that keeps his words, keeps his promises. He's a man's man. And as far as the stupid Epstein files, I don't know how many times Trump has to be exonerated in those. Dershowitz did it. Trump called the sheriff on him. Trump threw him out of Mar-a-Lago. And that's all that, as Bill O'Reilly says, speaking of Bill O'Reilly, that is all the Democrats have right now is the Epstein files. They have no new ideas. They have no solution other than tax and spend, big liberalism, big government, and criticizing Trump. That's all they got. Oh, and cutting the genitalia off little boys in kindergarten. That's all they got. That's all they got.
Well, let's bounce back to Persia for a second.
Yes, let's talk about Persia because they're all through the Bible.
Yeah, because we know it as Iran. My whole life it's been Iran, Iran, Iran. I had it pulled up. What year did it change? Sorry, I scrolled past it here. It used to be called Persia, and that changed. Man, I had it up. It was in the 30s, 35, I think. It changed to Iran. Do you think this would be a good time to change the name from Iran and retire the name of Iran?
And go back to Persia. I would love that.
What would be the significance?
President Trump changes the name of everying else. He
it's
changes
the Gulf
the name of the
of
Gulf
America.
Of
Listen, a lot of people say it should be the Gulf of America, a golden age, a golden name.
Hey, your Trump's getting very good.
The thing that he does, Pastor Bruce, he likes to do the campaign Trump. There's a more low-key President Trump, but he kind of likes to do the fired up campaign rally Trump. It's a little different.
Secretary Kennedy, may I ask you a question, please?
Yes, please. As long as it's about health and human affairs.
Yeah. Well, of course. How's the coloration of your Fruit Loops coming?
Listen, because of the Maha administration, those no more red dye number 40 with petroleum-based chemicals. It's now going to be from beetroot, which I strongly support. I also would have accepted scorpion skin, but they went with the beetroot.
Well, Senator Kennedy, what's the Ritalin industry going to do? What is Big Pharma going to do when there's no more hyperactivity from Red Dye 5 in the Fruit Loops? What are they going to do?
You got to understand the thing about those petroleum-based chemical dyes, hyperactivity. It's all just like a Hallmark holiday. You just gotta, if your kid's being an asshole, you just gotta tell him stop the crap. Just spare the rod, spoil the child. None of these SSRI, serotonin selective reuptake inhibitors. Just to tell the kid, don't be a dick.
That's what I used to tell your parents about you when you were like 7 years old.
Back in the day, I know. And if
I look back,
all the junk I was eating, all of the little Debbie cakes and stuff, it makes you wonder. Let me bring in. It looks like. Hold on, we might have a special guest.
Is Mahmoud back?
Finally,
yes.
Right? Internet went down. I had to reboot the modem and all that. Is like Jesus Christ. When you live in Palos Verdes, looks like.
Well, as long as you're not having a fire.
Welcome back, Mahmoud.
Yes. Well, he's allegedly back. He's frozen at the moment. We'll wait for that to come back in. But Bruce, we were talking before we started doing impressions about the importance of naming it Persia and the historical.
Yeah, ask your guest. Ask when you get your guest back, because in the Bible it was always Persia. It was always Persia, right? And for 2,000 years they've been under a dictatorship, and your guest can speak more to that. I would love to see the new government that comes in change the name back to Persia, but ask your guest how he would feel about that.
Yeah. So. Yeah. We, even though we consider ourselves Persians, but we don't like the word Persia because it's actually a word that was given to us by the Greeks. Means the Parsis. Now, the name Iran actually dates back to about 3,000 years ago, from the time before even the Achaemenid Empire. So the word Iran means people from the Aryan race, right? So Iran means that, Aryans. And it was the name of Iran when it was the Achaemenid Persians, but for some reason the Greeks changed it to Persia, and so we'd like to keep that name because it's older than anything else in history. So just a historical context. I had to give you that.
Well, in that case, Doctor, we shelve that idea of renaming the Gulf of America and Iran, Persia. Yeah, we'll shelve that idea.
Yeah, I will defer to your judgment on the name of it. But it's almost like if you're emerging from this nonsense, this would be a great time to rebrand. You know, just
Right. Yeah.
It-
Can I offer
That
something?
might
Can
that
I
might be
offer
a good
something?
that might be a good reason for that. Go ahead.
Gentlemen, can I offer a suggestion?
yes.
How about the United States of Trump here in North America?
Well,
He's doing some unique stuff.
he's doing unique stuff, but is the beautiful America is its diversity and not connecting to any one person as much as I love Trump. But going back to what we're talking about, when I was talking about being an immigrant coming to this country, let me say something on that one, and to go back to what we're talking about, my experience with this revolution. As an immigrant, I think we all, whether you come from Iran, Persia, Venezuela, Somalia, thank God we're going to do something about that, or any other part of the world, you have
Bananas and
every right but one. And I believe that as somebody who's immigrated, maybe my children who were born here are different, but as an immigrant, I have every right but one. And that's to criticize this country for whatever it does. I don't care if you're a Democrat, Independent, Republican, you're an immigrant, you agree with everything America does at that point in time. Period. You don't have a right to criticize it. You don't have the right to say this, that, and the other. So whether it's President Trump, and unfortunately, even if it was Kamala Harris or something, if it was a president and did something for America, did something that it related to America, I'm all 100% behind what America does. Now, let me go back to what we're talking about, my experience with the revolution. So one of the sweetest things that happened yesterday, Israel bombed what we in the West would call the headquarters, or the building of the Supreme Court, right? Supreme Court of Iran, for lack of a better word, or they call it the Revolutionary Court. That court had convicted, murdered, executed thousands of people, hundreds of thousands, actually, if you go back 47 years. And when that building got bombed, it was such a relief. My father and many of my family members were convicted in that court. I had an uncle, aside from the one we're talking about, he was a 3-star Imperial Iranian Air Force general, U.S. educated, F-4 fighter. He was part of that. In the beginning of the revolution, there was a coup that was going to be happening to topple the Iranian regime, and that coup, came out. Unfortunately, he was the leader of that coup. He was tortured. His eye was gouged, and he was shot several times, execution style. Nicest man, American trained, and so, and that's only my, one of my, for lack of a better word, things that I saw in that country happening, and in terms of atrocities, and it has continued year after year for 47 years. So when we see things happening in Iran, for people like us who actually were burnt by this revolution, it is a sweet day what America and Israel are doing there. So you can't buy with any amount of money or love. It's just justice being served by America.
If I've had this phrase that I'm using. Is it fair to call Iran, well, as it was, an Islamic supremacist nation? Is that a fair interpretation? A fair?
The last 47 years, correct.
Islamic
Correct.
supremacist
nation. It is correct, because they want to create a caliphate, a la Iranian style.
Remind people what a caliphate is. We keep using it, but
so caliphate is a word that was used by the Arabs at the beginning of the 7th century, when they were conquering the known world then, which was the Romans and the Persians, right? The Romans and the Persians at the time were the two dominant powers in the world. The Romans on the east side, as you can imagine, all of Europe and all that. And then the Persians, or the Second Persian Empire, the Sassanid dynasty, was all on the west side. The two of them met where today's Holy Land and all that area is, Syria, parts of Iraq, Jerusalem, Tel Aviv, all that. That was the boundary that separated them. When the Arabs came through to first defeat the Romans, or the Byzantine Empire, the Second Roman Empire, if you may, and then the Persians, they called that whole war the Caliphate. It was the start of creating a caliphate of the Islamic Empire. So, and then as you can imagine, throughout centuries, they dominated the region and went on to Europe, Spain, and all that. And then when they were all defeated and just were confined to that little Arabian Peninsula, that was the end of it. But throughout the ages, and then now recently in the last 40 some years, the Iranians want a resurgence of that caliphate again. So they want to be able to conquer the Holy Land and on to the west through, North Africa and all that stuff, right? Bring back, quote unquote, their old glory. Now, there's a difference here. I have to also distinguish between that, and the pastor Engelman would understand that more than anybody else, being in the religious sector of it. Islam is divided into two sects, just like we have in Christianity in the West. There's, the Catholicism, and then the Protestant
Catholic and
like
Protestantism.
Catholic. Islam has the same thing. There's the Shiites, which is Iranians, and then the Sunnis, which is really the rest of the world. There's over almost 900 million Sunnis versus about 100 million Shiites. Muslim population in the world is about 1 billion. The majority of those 100 million live in Iran. Iran is a population of about 90 million. Parts of Iraq is Shia, parts of Pakistan, parts of India, but they're a very small minority. So the war right now between the Islamic states is, hey, does the Shiites want to dominate the caliphate, or does the Sunnis want to dominate the caliphate? So we have a lot of Sunni terrorists out there that want to do the same thing. Al-Qaeda, Taliban, they're all Sunnis, and they want to be able to dominate the world with their ideology. Shiites, on the other hand, under the leadership of the now demised POS, we used to call the Ayatollah Khamenei, wanted to dominate the world with the Shiite sect. And the Shiites were always the militant sect of Islam. And the reason it got popular in Iran or Persia at the time of the Arab invasion was they said, we're not going to be conquered. We don't want to be conquered by the Arabs. So what do? We come up with this different flavor of religion. We're going to call it Shiism, so we can distinguish ourselves from the Sunnis, which is why, in the last 1,400 years, there's been that distinction between the Muslims, the Shiites, and then the Sunnis. I'm seeing you frowning yourself. If there's something I need to clarify a little bit more, Brother Engelman, or the other one I got to do work.
No. I agree with everything you've said, and I just found it interesting that at 9 on, the American media always says, "Watch out for the Shiites. Watch out for the Shiites," and yet it was the Sunnis that attacked us on 9/11.
Right. It was. So that's what I'm saying. When it comes to that kind of caliphate building, there is no distinction between Shiites and Sunnis. They both want it. It's just now that there's a rivalry between the two of them as to see who takes the helm of the power. But the Shiites have always been more the militant side of things than the Sunnis have. So,
well, let me just add this.
One more thing, which goes back to the very beginning of what we're talking about, where I personally say this is a continuation of the Crusades. This is what they want to do. Caliphate is to create, is to continue that Crusades to be able to defeat the Christians and the Jews in that part of the world, which is why we have to stop it, which is what the Americans are doing, is to stop this aggressive control and aggressive taking over of territory and what have you by the Muslims, Christian, Sunnis or Shiites. That has to stop. And this war, and if you recall, President Bush once called it the Crusades, and he got slammed by the media for calling it that. But it is. That's what we're trying to do in the West. We're trying to stop that crusade, which is now on the Islamic side, to take over. We can't have that.
Yeah, it's called self-defense, and we have that enshrined in our Second Amendment that we are allowed to defend ourselves. Taking a look over here, unfortunately, I warned every church to lock and load today, looking for potential lone wolves or otherwise. But this apparently is happening today. A terror attack in Austin, Texas. Unfortunately, a whole bunch of this stuff, and we have unknown numbers of millions of people who have flooded into this country with Joe Biden for 4 years, and now things are just an absolute mess. Let me toss it to you, Pastor.
Yeah.
Or to you, Mahmoud.
Is it? I think that was a saloon or a bar, wasn't it? There were 3 killed and 14 injured in a mass shooting at a watering hole. In Texas, we call them ice houses. Was that a saloon or was that a church?
Eric Daughtry's saying that it's that they found a Quran in his car, and it was Austin, Texas, 53 years old, Senegal, this, that, and the other. But the main point essentially just being that there's a lot of people in this country who I have deemed to be sleeper cells, Trojan horses, ready to wait. When are they going to get the order? Like we have been set up to be taken down. So if we dare mention the fact that there's a crusade to defend ourselves, call it what it is. How can you possibly prepare yourself to defend against it if you can't even speak its name?
Yep. There are,
the Cleveland Crusaders were the professional hockey.
Professional hockey. What were you saying? What was that professional hockey crusade?
When Brian was a little, yeah. Excuse me for interrupting, Doctor.
You're
Brian was a little boy.
Bit of a delay, by the way, so it's okay.
Oh, is that what it is? Okay.
Yeah, a little bit.
When Brian was a little boy, the Major League Hockey team in Cleveland, Ohio, were the Cleveland Crusaders. They probably would not be allowed to have that name today.
Right. The Redskins and all that, we know that. Unfortunately, being politically correct, we're crapping all over ourselves with that. So,
Mahmoud, whenever I meet a radical Indian with civil rights for American natives, I pull them aside after their lecture. This happened many, many times. Were you offended that the ball club in Cleveland was named the Indians? And they all get mad and the jugular sticks out. And they say, no, we're mad that they took the name away because it was an honor to us.
Right.
It's a bunch of white liberals that are doing away with all these names.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Jerry Cheevers and Paul Schmier. Yes.
Yeah, I'm a big sports guy here, but back to the potential threats that we have in this nation. We've been set up to be taken down, and Lord knows what the plan was if Trump was assassinated. Lord knows what the plan was if he was thrown in jail for the rest of his life and then Epsteined shortly after, because that was absolutely the plan. What are we supposed to do now, Mahmoud?
Yesterday or day before, a former director of FBI in North Carolina was on Fox News. I don't know if you heard his interview, and he was talking about the threat that the sleeper cells have over us. And of course, he's retired, so he could come and talk freely about that stuff, minus some detail. And he said FBI is quite aware that there's a number of these cells with tens, maybe hundreds of people. I don't know the exact number, so I don't want to throw a number just because I don't know it. It's that are out here, and we have to be careful about that. Now, I mean, I'm a nobody, but I'd written to the current director of FBI, Kash Patel, explaining that, I'm a nobody, but we hear stuff that comes out of Iran. I mean, I have friends and relatives and contacts that we're talking to there, if I may even call them friends and relatives. But there are information that's coming out that there are people in this country who are ready to harm us. We have to be careful and watch these guys. But they probably said, "Oh, who's this crazy guy writing a letter to to tell us what we already know?" If you already know it, then there's sleeper cells out here with people in them, and you ought to be careful about that. So, what it's worth, hopefully FBI is on top of it. And nothing. I mean, you already showed us an incident that's happened. So,
yeah, it's one, and I'll show you this one here too, because Bruce and I were discussing the media. Were they ever free and fair? Were they ever? Because in my lifetime, I've always known them to be lying, pushing propaganda at me, which is why I started the New American Media more than 15 years ago. But this is very interesting. A lot of stuff coming out in Austin today. This is an Austin, Texas reporter. He's here reporting on people gathering at the Texas Capitol, supporting the U.S. and Israel's action against Iran. I just find this pretty interesting. Check this out.
Yeah, those are the good guys. Those are the good guys. When you see that flag up there,
Give me 1 second. He said,
Yeah.
he says he's getting a message while they're out there, and his producers are telling him not to focus on it. Give me 1 second on this. They don't want me to focus on this, he says.
Why?
Well, I am.
Why? I mean, who's telling them not to? Those are the good guys, right? Those are the ones
The
behind.
producers.
Really?
The producers don't want to do anything that lets Trump get any glory.
I see. Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. So, unfortunate.
Opinions across Austin about the joint attack between the United States and Israel against Iran that happened early this morning. Some people like this
Brian
behind me are thanking Trump and the United States government for following through with this attack against Iran, while other people across the city say there needs to be more peace in the Middle East. The strike is drawing a variety of.
So, I mean, just occasionally you have people that you are willing to risk their jobs, is kind of what I was getting at, to tell you the true pulse of the people. People like you, Mahmoud, that are just thrilled about the removal of that demonic force.
Yep. I don't know why they would tell him that, who the guy was that told him not to say that, but those guys are the good guys. They're with the U.S. They're showing, they're raising the right flag and all that. But hey,
Pastor Bruce, we were discussing Persia, Iran. Go ahead.
Yeah, Mahmoud is probably not aware that your uncle worked for PBS, CBS, and ABC for many, many years, and in all three media: print, radio, and mainly television news. And back when I was a journalist, we were all kind of liberal back in those days, and most of us were registered Democrats. But man, we went after the Republicans, or rather the Democrats, with more of a vengeance, or as much as we did that we went after conservative politicians. And we were never censored like that, like they are today. Today, it's not a matter of what they say, it's what they don't cover. Right. And you're right, Brian, they don't want to give, the legacy media does not want to give Trump any credit for anything. Yeah. And it's repugnant. And the ratings continue to plummet with PBS, even PBS, MSNBC, the Communist News Network or the Clinton News Network, and the big three, CBS, ABC, NBC, that I used to work for. The ratings continue to plummet. It's unbelievable. We don't have a media anymore except for guys like you, Brian. And by the way, why is Judge Napolitano on Newsmax? He hates Trump.
I don't know.
I thought I'd throw that in there.
Allegiances have shifted a bit.
Yes.
But there are some people speaking out now. Here's one more I want to show you guys. This, surprisingly enough, a little bit of contrarian opinion popped up on CNN. I don't know that they really saw this one coming. They're covering celebrations breaking out in Iran following U.S.-Israeli attacks. Check this out.
I think that it is imperative the Democratic Party wake up and get past their dislike of Donald Trump, the President Trump.
Number one, that's the smartest.
Wow.
Far be it for me to give the Democrats any talking points that will actually help them. But this is exactly what they need to listen to, which probably means she'll be canceled. But let's hear her rant here, because this is pretty epic, and maybe the tide is turning.
I think that it is imperative the Democratic Party wake up and get past their dislike of Donald Trump, the President Trump, and their feelings of international conflicts going on. This is about national security. This is about what is possible in the Middle East. This is about being a good neighbor, good partner to the Gulf states and what their aspirations are. This is about supporting the people of Venezuela. This is about dismembering our relationship with, or not dismembering, but resetting our relationship with China. Right now, 55% of the oil production that Iran produces goes to China despite sanctions. You want to support the people of Ukraine. You want to end that war. You have to. There is no getting around dismembering this Islamic Republic. It is non-negotiable. It is not a want to have. It is a have to have.
And that's interesting because Kamala Harris was saying the exact opposite. But
it's not a want to have. It is a have to have. And it's not just for the Iranian people. I think you have to trust the Iranian people. We know this government better than anyone else. When you dismember and decapitate this regime, you are going to see a change in the Middle East, in Venezuela, in China, in Ukraine. And I think, quite frankly,
the butterfly effect.
their ideology has really, it's caused a lot of problems for us worldwide. We need to take it seriously. And I think at this point we have a tremendous opportunity. This will be like ending the Soviet Union, the Berlin Wall. This is a transformational moment for humankind, for security. And as an American, this is in our interest to complete it. So I am a Democrat. I have been a huge Democrat. I am incredibly disappointed with my party. I do not see myself in them in this moment.
Yep.
Mahmoud, take it.
Well, when she talks about Kamala Harris, Kamala, of all the people, being a child of immigrants, should have known this better than anybody else. And if I was her, I would have worded it differently. I would say, I support everything in America does, but I disagree with this or that part of it. Not to come say this war is wrong. She should have known better. Her parents fled. I forgot which island they came from, but fled atrocities. In their case, they came here for economic reasons, unlike us who came here for political reasons. But nevertheless, she came into this country and she should support anything it does. And I'm appalled at what she's done, and it's apparent in Democrats who want to distance themselves from those type of thoughts and processes.
Pastor Bruce, you see maybe a crack in the dam, if you will? The Democrats have to be looking at their polls, realizing that nobody's buying what they're selling. They're polling at about 18% approval. The constant hate Trump, it's like, that's going to get you your 18%. Take away the potential voting irregularity scams that are going on, and maybe it'll show an 80-20 country again. But do you think the Democrats might have any self-awareness to reposition their policy choices here? Or do you think they're going to double down on stupid and try a third or fourth version of the same stuff they've been doing?
I think they're going to double down on stupid, with the exception of Senator Fetterman, and who would have thunk? They are in lockstep. By the way, we got to get rid of Amy Coney Barrett. We've got to get her off the Supreme Court.
Roberts too. I don't think we have much going on in the Roberts camp, but
yeah.
Pastor Bruce is frozen a little bit here.
We have 3 more years that we could nominate somebody for the Supreme Court if something happens. God forbid. I don't want anybody to be hurt, but hey, if something happens, there's an opening there, and we have a chance to put somebody that is aligned with President Trump there. So we'll see.
Let me ask you, Mahmoud, what comes next as we hopefully wait for Bruce to reconnect here? There's a power vacuum, and there's the heir to the kingly throne, but there's not a lot of interest in bringing that family line back.
Yeah. It's not a lot of interest, although there is some, but it's not a majority, so you can't talk about that. But Prince Reza Pahlavi, since day one, has said it. If you go back and listen to all of his interviews throughout the last 47 years, he said it from when he was 19 to today when he's 65, that I don't want to go back and reclaim the throne. My job as somebody who lives in the free world is to be able to get the message across and perhaps be that catalyst that takes Iran out of this quagmire that it's in today into a free society. And then we're going to have a national referendum. And then there's options on that referendum. And this national referendum is going to be governed by some outsiders as well as Iranians, right? It's not going to be just Iranians governing it. There's going to be people and judges and, respectable people from outside world coming in to be able to administer this. This referendum is going to have options. You want to have a constitutional monarch. Do you want to have a republic? Do you want to have a democratic republic? Do you still want to have a religious, right? So all of those have to be an option, and then the Iranians choose themselves. So he's always said that he's not going back to reclaim the throne unless the people, the majority, 50+1, would want him to do that. So we got to be very, very direct and very clear about this to the Americans, that we're not putting a puppet back there. We're not putting a king back there. We're just somebody who's got some backing as an alternative. Right now, there is nobody else. There is nobody other than Prince Reza Pahlavi that could bring this change about as a leader of change, as a leader of moving from one to the next.
A transitional figure, perhaps.
Transitional figure. Exactly.
he put this out here 7 hours ago. I won't do the translation. But by the way, if I just played this, are you still fluent? You're good if I.
I'm very fluent. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I won't torture the English speaking audience with this.
So
I'll read the
yeah.
translation here.
So
Go ahead.
just that second word, the Zahak, is an old Persian word, a Zoroastrian word for demon. When I call it a demonic regime, it's a Zahakic regime. So that's the same translation of it. So he's
Okay,
on the same thought process the rest of us are.
yeah,
The demon is gone.
I am yes, because I agree completely. Reza Pahlavi here says, my compatriots, Ali Khamenei, the Sahak of our time, the demon who only weeks ago issued the order for the massacre of tens of thousands of Iran's finest sons and daughters, is gone. With his disgraceful death, in that of many of his appointees and affiliates, the Islamic Republic is drawing its final breaths. Through your will and bravery, it will soon be consigned to the dustbin of history. The great nation of Iran seeks the complete fall of the Islamic Republic, and we will bring down this demonic regime. My message to the remaining officials of this Republic of Terror is this: surrender to the Iranian nation. Declare your loyalty to my plan. See, now he's saying declare your loyalty to my plan and our transition framework. So I'm sensing a little bit of something here, but we'll continue, and hand over power without any further bloodshed. Any attempt by the remnants of the regime to appoint a successor to Khomeini is doomed to failure in advance. Whoever they place in this position will not only lack legitimacy, but will also be a partner in the crimes of this regime. To the military, law enforcement, and security forces, I say, your weapons must be used to defend the great nation of Iran, not the republic of crime, thuggery, and its anti-Iranian criminals. Join the people of Iran and the Lion and Sun Revolution. Use your arms to protect Iranians against the mercenaries of the Islamic Republic so that this 47-year nightmare may end more swiftly. He continues, the death of the criminal Khomeini, though it does not repay the blood that has been shed, can calm the wounded hearts of grieving fathers and mothers, spouses and children, sisters and brothers, a measure of solace for the proud families of the martyrs of Iran's Lion and Sun Revolution. Honorable and courageous people of Iran, the death of the despot of our time, although it marks the beginning of our great national celebration, is not the end of the road. Remain vigilant, be prepared. The time for a widespread and decisive presence in the streets is very near. I ask you, while maintaining your security, to demonstrate your satisfaction with and support for the crushing of the Islamic Republic through nightly chants, and to shout your demands for Iran's future. My strength comes from your strength and your support. It sounds like he's campaigning. I ask Iranians abroad, who for weeks have worked tirelessly and relentlessly as the powerful voice of our compatriots inside Iran, to intensify your efforts. Force the world to hear the Iranian people's support of this humanitarian intervention in our demand for the complete fall of the regime. Sensitive days lie ahead of us. Together we will walk the path to victory, and we will overthrow the Islamic Republic. Long live Iran. Reza Pahlavi. Sounds like a campaign speech to me.
Well, it is, Brian. But let me add some thoughts of which many of us who support him have that. When he's talking about my plan, it is what exactly you were talking about: a transitional government, one that goes in and creates this committee that actually comes up with a new constitution of the country, right? Because a country has to have a constitution before you can do anything, right? Even elect a government, right?
The framework, the guideline.
The framework, the guideline, right? That's his plan. When he's talking about my plan, is to set up a constitution, at which point then you go into the process of a national referendum to select what you want to do. And then whatever that government comes in takes the basis of that constitution and adds its own flavors to it, like we have in this country, right? Do you want to have the right to bear arms? No? Yes? Okay, you add it to it. If you don't want, okay, you take it off and then you move on to something else. But the basis of the current regime's constitution is Sharia law. In fact, it says it. The very first line when you look at their constitution is based on the Sharia law, and then it goes into all the stipulations that they have, right? So we want to have that framework. It's not going to be the Sharia law. It's just going to be the law of the nation, whatever it is. Maybe we copy the constitution or the laws that we have in this country. Maybe we do it to have in Belgium. Maybe we do it that they have in in France. I don't know, whatever that basis and that platform and that beginning is going to be. That's his plan, right? So just wanted to make that clear.
Okay. Pastor Bruce, welcome back. Yeah, we were talking about the path forward now. We're not done. We don't want a quagmire. We don't want something to go sideways and turn into just, that would be the worst thing in the world, which means that's what the Democrats are probably going to be pushing for and probably funding, if we're going to be honest here. But moving forward, now that this demon, as everybody seems to like calling him, I will jump on that bandwagon. Now that the demon's gone, Bruce, what does your gut instinct tell you? And historically, biblically, the implications of the next steps here?
Your guess is as good as mine. And I take it that your other guest, it's been a joy to be on with him today, by the way, and an honor, is not for the Shah's son taking over. Is that correct?
Yeah, we were just sort of discussing that, but in your words, go ahead, Mahmoud.
I am for him taking over as the leader of the transition. And that's what he said.
A limited specific role to just take it from point A to point C.
Point B.
I'll be point B.
Exactly. And if in a referendum, the people decide that I'm going to be heir to the throne again and take the throne, 50+1, then I'll take it. If not, I'm out. He said that, and I think that's very clear. And the Iranians are not gonna go from this system to another system that they don't want. So let's be clear of that, right? This is not Iraq or Syria where somebody else is going to come make a decision. Those brave souls out there are fighting with their lives not to go back into another form of regime or government that they don't want, right? So referendum is going to decide that. So now, to add to that, right, Reza Pahlavi is pretty much the only figure we know in the West that's going to be able to make that transition. He's lived in this country as long as I have. He's in all his youth, he was trained with the Western way of thought. So he's very much lock and step is in what me, Brian, you, and your uncle are thinking of, right? So there's no difference in that part. Now, the next person who comes even remotely close to him is the leader of the MEK, the Mujahideen, or what we know as the communists, the religious communist group. Maryam Rajavi, I don't know if you've heard her name or not, but she's the leader of the communist sect, of which it has a very, very, very small backing in a minority. It used to be a big portion during the Iranian Revolution in 1979. Aside from the religious group, that other group had a majority in overthrowing the Shah. But throughout the years, and people getting educated and more aligned with the Western thinking, their support has shrunk to a point where it's just a very small minority. She's another one that's considered or announced herself as a candidate for the move. But you don't hear about that in the West, do you? You don't know that name because nobody covers them because they don't have any backing. So Reza Pahlavi is the only alternative for a transition from demon to an angel. Whoever that angel may be, we don't know. It might be a king, it might be a president, it might be, hopefully not another demon, but it might be somebody good. But we'll see.
What? Yeah, yes. Speaking, have told me that pretty much what Mahmoud says, that ties to the communists and the socialists and to some terrorist networks, that they really don't have a lot of credibility. And is that correct? So that's what my sources are telling me. And you're right. Most people in the West have not even heard of the MEK. And I'm glad you brought that up because I was going to ask you about that, Mahmoud. But what I would like to see happen is a coalition government, maybe with the Shah's son and some leaders of the resistance that are semi-civil, until there is an actual transitional government, kind of a coalition pre-transitional, to get the sides together and talk and bring stability to the streets of Tehran and get some law and order developed.
Right.
And they're still going to have to, Brian and Mahmoud, they're still, as you well know, both of you, they're going to have to still filter out some of the loyalists that are left behind, kind of like all the anti-Trump people that were left behind in Donald J. Trump's first term, that sabotaged everything he did, including his own cabinet, behind his back. There's going to be still some loyalists and some old hardliners that have got to be cleaned out, got to be purged, got to be expunged. But it's your guesses are as good as mine. I'm praying that there will be a peaceful transition, and there will be no quagmire.
Absolutely. If I may, Brian, add to something Pastor was talking about, this transition to happen, probably we need another, again, I go back to what I was saying in the beginning, another few weeks of constant bombardment, whether it's going to be by the Israelis or the Americans or a combination of the two. Israeli jets going in, our B-2s going in. We take 80% of the responsibility, or the Israelis take 80%. It's going to be the next couple of weeks. So everyone in America, including Democrats, have to give the president that opportunity. That it's not going to happen tomorrow, right? This is not a 3-day thing. You can't give it a timeline. You just have to go with constant bombardment, which is the Israelis are doing. They've had 1,200 hits just in the first day, more than all the 12 days they had in the first bombing raid they had on Iran 5 months ago. 1,200 bombing strikes, which decapitated almost the entire regime. So if they continue that for the next, let's say a couple of weeks, right? Maybe 2, 3, I don't know, just a couple of weeks, that regime is going to totally collapse because the Israelis right now are concentrating on every major base that IRGC has, which is what the police force, the brown shirts, for lack of a better word. I like to use the brown shirts because it relates to what Hitler was doing in Germany. It's exactly what these guys are doing, or they call them the plainclothes mob. And then they have another force. It's not the police force, but I forgot the name they use. But it's really the thugs of the regime who have, who wear those regalia with, covers and stuff that you see some of our police use, or not police, but our SWAT units use.
ICE too, yeah.
ICE too, right? Exactly. So those type of thugs. So if Israel consistently and continuously bombs those centers, then the population is going to rise. Again, this is conjecture on our part. We don't know, but we're hoping that's going to happen. And I think that's a plan for the Americans and Israelis have, that would allow the population to come out and completely overthrow this regime.
I have a moment from George Washington, who had a famous refusal to seize monarchical power. That's always a weird word for me. Right. Monarchical power after the Revolutionary War. Washington himself never really said anything exactly like this, but the sentiment is often expressed in historical discussions as, we fought a King George in England, we won't replace him with a King George in America.
And right.
So whether Pahlavi can be a transitional force while still being one of the only few people who could pass up permanent power. It's almost like the ring in Lord of the Rings. You can't throw it, you can't cast it into the fire. It consumes you. It power like has one of those strangleholds on people, it seems. But also maybe there could be something in Iran similar to the U.S.-led plan in Gaza. They have a special economic zone with preferred tariff rates, customs privileges, investment incentives, negotiated access to participating countries, basically trying to build stability through economics. If there's enough important, powerful people with economic interests to settle and simmer and keep things cool, maybe you're not going to go around executing families, rounding them up and just slaughtering. Maybe you don't have a idealistic, demonic agenda at hand, trying to hold on to your power. It's just about the ability of putting something together that can provide some prosperity. So, yeah, just once again, maybe I'll kick it to Pastor Bruce here to start. But the concept of whatever comes next in Iran, being able to pass that power back to what the people put together. And then, of course, any comparisons to Gaza having to rebuild, with Iran trying to figure out what comes next. Or if he's frozen, back to Mahmoud, same question.
So very, very good point you bring up. I think the economic stability is well, Pastor's back. You want to go to him or you want me to continue?
Well, he's pausing and stuttering, so we'll keep going and we'll bring him in.
So the economic stability is absolutely necessary, as what you're talking about. Now, how that plan is going to be implemented, obviously, is going to be however the population wants. But absolutely, the economic look, Iran is a country of about 95 million. 95 million consumers that's going to be added to the world economy. There is no other country in the world. There is no other market that we can go after. The West, Europe, America, even China have already inundated the world, right? But Iran is the only island of self, exile for all these years, for all these decades, that's going to join the market. 90 million consumers. They're going to want to ride in Boeing airplanes that they've been denied for decades. They're going to want to have the iPhones that right now sells as if it's a block of gold. They weren't going to have access to Frito-Lay chips that they were denied for having for all these years. Kit Kat chocolate, and just you name it, you go on. So that is going to open up the world to the commerce that President Trump is so enamored with, right? He's a businessman. He's a dealer. In fact, the joke in Iran is, and I think it's getting to be a lot more serious than just a joke. They're saying when Iran is free, the first thing we're going to do, or they, whom I live in this country, what they're going to do is to go into the tomb of Ayatollah Khomeini, who his tomb cost over $1 billion to build. They're saying, well, we're not going to destroy this building of this monumental wealth that was spent on it. But what we're going to do, we're going to make it a casino, and President Trump is going to come in and make that a casino. Can you believe that? Can you imagine that? The irony of that? Not only I killed your leader, I'm going to make his tomb a casino. Now, there's other thoughts. They're going to say, okay, let's make it into a national memorial for all the dead and all that, right? As a museum. But the fact that and Iranians are overwhelmingly want to do something with that. But the fact that they're talking about a casino in a religious country and all the people Trump and coming to build it, oh my God, that's a joyful day. If that
well, and that brings up another question that I wanted to raise with you, Mahmoud. Thank you for being here again. By the way, everybody hit like, hit subscribe, follow the New American Media in all the places. Tell us what Iran was like before it went sour. It was.
Oh my God.
I've seen the photos. I've seen the pictures. I go, there's no way you went from being hot chicks and good times to looking out a slit like this, like you're a peeping Tom in a, right. with your blinds. Like you get to walk around in a full black burlap sack in 137-degree temperature. Like, what are we doing? Tell us what happened before things went crazy in Iran.
Brian, I think you and I have talked about this years ago when we used to be, together, and then when your late brother was alive, I talked to him about that too. God bless his soul. We talked about that. America, if you were in there in the 1970s when I was growing up, it was as if you were in the West. I don't know, you were in Spain or.
I think we have Bruce, but not Mahmoud. Bruce, go ahead. We're talking about Iran before it went sour.
Yes, yes. It always has been more of a westernized civilization compared to some of the more primitive Arabic countries and cultures in the Middle East. In fact, they're tied with Israel as far as technology. They had their own Hollywood. Iran had their own Wall Street. Iran always had a sophisticated economy, even under the late Shah. But all that was kind of a cultural revolution turned, upside down by the original ayatollah, who was a demon-possessed. But and then this guy was as bad, if not worse. But yes, very much. I have a friend who's been for years, and he loved very pro-American, pro-Israeli, and it's a shame that everything turned out the way it did. Hopefully, this will. Iran back on track the way they were, with the good parts of the original Shah. You know, I don't see them turning back to a despotic dictatorship again. I don't see that happening. But I see a coalition government of all these different pieces in the puzzle put together, civility and some normalcy and some stability to the streets. And then we also got to pray, Brian and Mahmoud, that the right people take over the military.
Oh yeah.
That the people from the resistance take over the military, and not more radical terrorists.
You mean like when Biden left all those troops and supplies in Afghanistan for whoever wanted them, just to go and grab them? Mahmoud, welcome back.
Yes.
Yeah, we're going to pray for stability in Iran, better than the 3 of our internet connections.
Right. Yeah.
What has been going on today?
Look,
what has been going on today?
I know.
So there's
speaking.
If I only make one complaint about one thing in America, it's our internet infrastructure. The rest of the world has a better internet structure than what we do in this country, so we got to work on that one. And thankfully, Starlink is going to be the next. But
yeah, I might need to switch to Starlink. Where we lost you was the conversations you were having with my late brother about Iran prior to things going sour.
I mean, it's as if you lived in the West. I don't know how much of it you heard. As if you lived, not as much as America. America is a different culture. The rest of the world can't really duplicate. But it's as you were in Europe or any other modern country. It was actually a modern country moving forward in the world. It wasn't a third world country. Whereas right now, Iran under this regime is a third world country. I mean, that's horrible to think that we had a rich, benevolent country that was actually moving up in the world with the 5th largest air force in the world, one of the strongest armies in the region. Everyone was American educated coming in to build that country, to something that's completely gone to hell, for lack of a better word. I mean, my life was a little different because I was fortunate enough to be of a family that could afford things. So I went to an American high school. Not everybody did that, but I grew up with a football team, a baseball team, a drum majorette. Everything that American high school has here today, we had it over there. Now, again. But that shows where that country was moving towards. It was the only regional power in there that was keeping stability and was friends with everybody. Israel was very strong in terms of the economy in Iran. It was friends with all the Arab nations around the Persian Gulf. It kept the stability of that region. Whereas right now, look what it is. So it was a joy to.
Mahmoud?
Go ahead. Did I lose you guys again?
No. I think Bruce was trying to jump in. He had a question for you.
Go ahead.
And he's
not I had a question for you
as well. So
I tried to ask you this question earlier, an hour ago. Do you remember what President Nixon said when asked the Shah at a press conference?
Yeah.
What did Nixon say about the Shah at a press conference?
Yeah, one of the greatest leaders in that part of the world, and I got to tell you, Nixon was a good friend. Nixon was the only American that showed up to his. Go ahead. Did I lose you guys, or we just lost a pass?
No, I'm still here. I did the delay. Man, we're having
I'm still here.
Bruce, kick it to you. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, and Nixon loved the Shah, and he loved, unlike Carter. Porter said, but the Shah can be kind of a and he said, RB.
He could. I think I heard him what he said before we got cut off. He could, but so could every other leader in the world, right? Nobody's perfect. Everybody has I'm sorry to say this, but everybody has a stick up his butt. None of us are angels, right? We all make mistakes. We all say things we're not supposed to. But compared to what it ended up coming into that system, he was an angel.
Yeah, I typed in your premise, Bruce, and it's the quote I got back from Grok Artificial Intelligence says, Oh, do you want to read this in your Nixon voice? Do you do a Nixon?
Oh, yeah. I am not a crook. The Shah was a.
Yep.
First, I would say that the Shah was irresponsible and reckless. However, his information, I think, is different from ours.
There you go. That's a good one. That was a good presentation.
Let me read. The Shah.
Yep.
The Shah
was our friend. Absolutely was. You know, when
Are you old under Lyndon Baines Johnson?
I was very tiny little creature, but yeah, I read things about him. I think I was maybe Lyndon 12 or 13 when he was a president.
Baines Johnson, this is Lyndon, and I don't like this.
That's a good one. He was another friend of the Shah, by the way. Pastor,
LBJ?
if you remember, he was good friends. He was good friends.
No, he was. He actually liked it.
In fact, if I may add this, when President Carter was running for the presidency, one of the platforms he was running on was human rights, right? And he criticized the Shah for allegations of human rights. When he became the president, I guess information was given to him, and he goes, "Oh, okay, maybe the Shah's right in trying to quell some of his opponents." And in December 1978, December 23rd, they came to Iran for Christmas with Rosalind, and in a dinner that was in his honor, he stood up with a glass of wine to the Shah and said to the leader, what was his famous quote, to the leader in one of the most turbulent areas of the world, right? And he drank to the Shah, and everybody thought, oh, okay, so Carter is now his friend. And then 11 months or 10 months later, we know what happened in 1979, the revolution, and Carter turned his back on the Shah and stuff. So he was, at some point, he was like, oh, well, maybe the Shah is a good guy. We should keep him. But he effed it up and took the support away from. One of the big mistakes was to send, what was the ambassador's name, who had no idea of how the Middle East worked. He used to be the ambassador in one of the Southeast Asian countries. He sent him to Iran, and he just botched everything. He was given wrong information to the Carter administration. And in fact, Zbigniew Brzezinski said, this guy is just giving us lies. Let's take him out of the Iranian embassy. I forgot his name, the ambassador at the time. That was a mistake.
Sullivan, perhaps?
Solomon. There you go. Solomon. It was a mistake to send him there. And then when the Shah left the country, the deputy of NATO, another general whose name I forgot, he came to Iran to convince the generals not to have a coup against Khomeini and bring the Shah back. And that was a big mistake, because look what happened. All of his generals then were summarily executed one by one by the Ayatollah. And here we are today.
Yeah, I have. Good.
Yep. No, your guest here has summed everything up very well. Perspective.
I think the general you're referring to, is that Robert Heiser?
Heiser.
Dutch
I'm
Heiser?
glad yeah, Dutch. You're more informative than I am. Maybe I'm losing my mind, but you're right. General Heiser, or Heuser, however you want to say it. But yeah, in Farsi, we used to call him Heuser. General Heuser came to Iran and pretty much pulled the rug from under the Shahs. But, it's 2020, right? Hindsight is 2020. What would have happened had the military gone into a coup and killed hundreds of thousands, brought the Shah back? Would have been a better system than now. But one thing we know, as being a 2020, one thing we know, that 47 years on, that revolution was a mistake. And the Iranians are coming to that conclusion. The majority of Iranians are coming to that conclusion, that their fathers, now this is 2 generations ago, that their fathers participated in the wrong revolution. Perhaps the Shah could have been reformed. I call the Shah a benevolent dictator, right? He had everything in the right place. He had his heart in the place and wanted to bring that country from generations of being just a rural society run by serfs and landowners and stuff, kind of like what we did in America and in the West, in Europe in the 16th and 17th centuries, bring it back into actually it goes back into 14th and 15th centuries in Europe when you try to bring him into the modern world. And he had to do it by force at times, right? You want to bring people into the new world, and sometimes you got to actually hit him upside the head and say, this is the way we're going to do it. So, but it is what it is. We are here today, and hopefully in the future, things will look a little bit better for that country.
Yeah, that reminds me of Governor Jesse Ventura joked that a benevolent dictatorship may be the perfect form of government.
Government, right?
As soon as you said that, that reminded me. Kenneth in the comments says Jimmy Carter was a part of the Illuminati. He heard nutty. Very nice wordplay there. The peanut farmer from Georgia. Also, here's a quote talking about Nixon. Post-presidency in 1980 interviews after the Shah's fall and the Iranian Revolution, Nixon lamented the U.S. abandonment of the Shah, saying things like, if the U.S. doesn't stand for its friends, we're not going to have friends. He called the Shah's ouster a tragedy for Iran and the West. Right. With worse repression under the new regime.
Absolutely.
Yeah, hindsight 2020, but you're back in the wrong horse. You know, you're going the wrong direction here. And, you know, my generation was taught that the Crusades were, just a bunch of horrible white Christian men, just the bane of every existence, the white Christian man. There's nothing lower on the totem pole. My teachers love to say about the Crusades and everything else. It's just, that they were the bad guys. And then you kind of look at it like, no, they were being invaded and they pushed back
the invasion. Exactly. It was just an army. We just call it crusade. It was an army back then who was trying to conquer the world. And it's an army today. The Shiites and the Muslims are trying to conquer this part of the world, right? So you got to put a stop to it. Now, whoever wins is going to be the ruler of the world at the time. Do you want the Muslims to be or the Shiites to be? I don't think so. I'm going to put my money on that, and I don't want that. If the rest want it, good. Go ahead and live in Iran for a couple of years. Have your wives and daughters and girls and put on their veil and hijab and beaten in the street because they don't listen to the man. And maybe you'll rethink your attitude towards, at least in America, towards Islam.
Yeah, and would true feminists, would they really back the oppressive regime, or should they be kind of paying attention here? David in the comments says this is one more step in the takedown of the deep state. Bruce, we got you back here. So we're going to start wrapping this up with some final and any odds and ends pieces here about, should we be excited, cautiously optimistic, this, that, and the other. But do you see this as a potential another step toward the takedown of the deep state? And then as far as the Crusades, just globally speaking, the battle of good and evil, and as Mahmoud and I were talking about, the demonic influence of the Ayatollah, in the words of Pahlavi. Pastor Bruce?
Yes, sir. One area we have not talked about, Brian and Mahmoud, is the role of China and Russia. One of the many reasons why some of the former presidents chickened out and would not take care of business is because they feared what China and Russia
They're trying. They're trying.
The nation Russia can't live if they not acting like you can. So this is really down.
We're fighting through it.
One more deep state. Also,
I don't get what he's saying.
I can't catch
but
on.
Yeah, but to actually piggyback on what he was talking about, we started with China. China
and
Russia,
you did mention a little bit of China as well.
Yeah, we talked about not a peep out of these guys to come to support the Iranian regime, which is the biggest market for China and Russia. Now, Russia is not going to say anything because Russia is selling its oil when the Iranian oil is taken off the market. And I'm surprised at China for not saying anything, because China wants to take over that market itself. But perhaps they've talked with President Trump, and there's some deal going on in the back to sell some cheap oil to Chinese, but they've been quiet, which is a good thing, because we want this thing to be settled by us and not by the Chinese and the Russians. So
and that was always the threat, right? Like, oh, if you do something with Iran, the big brother's going to come in and they're going to make it.
Nothing.
And they go, well, what if you work on it behind the scenes? And what if or did anyone like any of these bastards to begin with? And it was all just smoke and mirrors, saber rattling and
stuff.
And propaganda. I mean,
just
nobody likes the bullies on the block.
Yes.
And like, are we the bullies because we're Team America World Police, or are we punching the bullies in the nose? I don't think Maduro or
I think the latter. I think the latter. We're punching it. Look. I always say, again, I'll go back to saying, as an immigrant, do you see any immigrant? Give me an example of hundreds of immigrants that are moving to China. Give me an example of hundreds of immigrants that are moving into Russia. Give me an example of thousands of immigrants moving to Australia. Yeah, they're doing that. But do you have an example of millions of people still wanting to come to America? Absolutely. So despite of all the negative press out there about America and doing wrong and Trump and all that stuff, every human being on this earth still wants to come to America. It shows America is the greatest. And you have to show your teeth at times to be able to hit the bully in the face if that's the case. Case in point in China, and in this case, Iran, as we're talking about. And we're going to win that war. We're going to win that war. No doubt in my mind, we're going to win that war, and Iran's going to come back into the foray of human civilization again.
Sure hope so. Let's try to get that thought from Pastor Bruce. The internet, if the internet gods will allow the pastor to say a few words. Try it again.
Yes, I just want to say thank you today. It's been a joy in spite of the electronic challenges. Mahmoud, it was great meeting you, and thank you for your perspective. And we just need to pray for the peace of Jerusalem and revival and Iran.
You got it.
Okay, that was a couple of words. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, you know who the internet god is? Elon Musk. Let's not forget that.
Kind of, sort of.
All right.
But Pastor Bruce, I'll tell you what, I think your feed is super strong. Give us a real strong prayer, would you? As nobody can do but you, for the good people of Iran as we move forward and to watch over our troops. Give us one of the barn burners, if you would. That'd be maybe a great way to wrap today's program up, if you would.
Let's do that. Heavenly Father, our holy God, in Jehovah's name, we ask you to bless Iran, protect their wonderful people, get a new government installed in there that is God-honoring. And Father, we pray for the peace of Jerusalem, for wisdom for President Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu and President Abraham of Israel. And Father, we pray that there be no more casualties or very, very few, and bring this war to a quick halt. And we pray that it would be the best for Israel, for America, and Iran, all three. And help us prepare our hearts, because I believe you're coming back real soon to that part of the country. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
So mote it be.
So mote it be. Indeed. No, that's fantastic. Gentlemen, despite all of our connectivity issues, I'm glad we connected for this, because this is monumental. This is one of those, I mean, just key moments on the geopolitical map of important things that occurred, because the domino effect, the butterfly effect of removing this terrorist
Zahak regime.
Yeah, a terrorist Islamic regime, but it's a conveyor belt. It was a conveyor belt machinery that just kept producing more of the same shit. We shut that shit down. Pardon my French, Pastor Bruce. But now the machine that kept cranking this stuff out so continuously, it's in rubble. Now we have a chance to build something better, and I'm really hopeful that we do.
Yep.
Really hopeful that we do. All right. That was a great final word. Mahmoud, if you had anything to add before we wrap, sir.
Nope. Thank you for inviting me, and it's good talking to both of you.
Absolutely. And should there be some major new developments, and I have a hunch there may be, I'll put it out as an open invitation. We'll both try. Well, all three of us. I'll contact my service provider. You contact your service provider. We'll try to tighten it up and give it. But I do want to stay on top of this because there's a million things I don't know and a million things I want to stay on top of with this particular issue. So, gentlemen, thank you for joining me on this Sunday. I appreciate you so much. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you,
There
Brian.
you go.
Thank you, Mahmoud.
And Pastor Bruce, thank you so much, gentlemen. It really was a pleasure today. We got through it. We did a lot of juggling to keep the internet feed together, but it was worth it. I hope you enjoyed it. Please hit like. Please hit subscribe. Kenneth says, Biden. No, wait, Biden. Yes, Biden, not Biden. Thank God. And not Kamala either. Yeah, we'll see, David, if this is going to be one more step down the path of removing and dismantling the deep state. Lord willing. This stuff has just had humanity in quite a bind for quite some time. And I refuse to take the black pill. While I still can dream of a better place, dream of a globe that will not abuse our citizens, the citizens of Earth, the way that we've witnessed, unfortunately, throughout history. Why can't we be better? And the removal of this awful demonic regime is a good thing. The people that I know, the stories of people, friends and friends of friends, and people who defected and fled and escaped, the harrowing tales of escaping Iran and the persecution that these people have been under. The world that Mahmoud grew up in, like that was a great Iran. That was a booming, awesome place, and ended up turning back into the Stone Age. And if you don't want to participate in the defense of your nation, England, Ireland, Spain, France, Germany, Italy, basically all of Europe, the United States, you have a decision to make. There's a path. Your road is diverging in the woods. What is it? Walden? I took the road less traveled. Well, you can look at Iran as a test case. Do you want to be overthrown by an Islamic supremacist regime, or do you want to push for freedom and liberty? And if there's a bully on the block, how long do you let him threaten everybody before you decide, hey, if nobody else is going to do anything, comma, ... Oh, the thing I forgot to mention with Pastor Bruce and Mahmoud was that I came up with a new term for Pete Hegseth, Department of War, Secretary of War. We're going to call him Pistol Pete. Now, I don't know how much longer the Iran situation is going to go. The comment could come and go, and maybe it'll be one of those freezing cold takes. This aged poorly. If this Iran situation devolves into a quagmire over the next several years, causing enormous catastrophe, calamity, and casualty. But the speed and the targeted effort to neutralize and or extricate Maduro in Venezuela and now Khomeini in Iran, it just sort of does make you wonder what in the world was going on for those other years. Did they really want to do anything in Iraq, Afghanistan? Or was it just they needed it to be long and drawn out and prolonged to push for bigger and bigger and bigger budgets, more and more money being routed, funneled, money laundered to their connected friends and allies at the expense of our friends, our family, our brethren? I don't know. I feel optimistic. I feel hopeful, cautiously optimistic. I'm definitely hopeful. I'm definitely prayerful, hoping that this will be a net positive, a major net positive for humanity. The Trump haters have already seized on this, and they're going to town, and time will tell. But oh yeah, they definitely took the opiates out of Afghanistan, David. Yeah, I remember a very detailed conversation with a serviceman whose job was to guard the opium fields. And it was actually, they said the Taliban didn't want everybody hooked on opium, so they were destroying it, but their cash crop that was funding all the dark sites and all their dark money operations, They couldn't run it through there, and that's why they had to be taken out. And you go, my God, every time I peel back another layer of the onion, it's like an Uno reverse card. They're the good guys. No, they're the bad guys. They're the good guys. They're the bad guys. And you go, is there really good and evil on this planet? Pahlavi was saying, that was a demonic regime that was removed in Iran. The people who watched what happened in the past 50 years tend to agree overwhelmingly. It was a butcherous nightmare that they're emerging from. We're not done. This isn't over. But from everything I can understand, the good people of Iran, they deserve better. And I'm hopeful they can achieve something that's eluded them for half a century, and that's a decent place to live. So fingers crossed, continued prayers on that regard. Special thanks to Pastor Bruce. Special thanks to Mahmoud for joining today. And special thanks to all of you in the chat, David and Kenneth and everybody. It's always fun. Super Bear, new follower over there on Twitch. Happy to have you, Super Bear. Everybody hit like, hit subscribe. Rumble Rants, Super Chats. It's a new month, so it's new tallies. Trying to boost the fazoo, boost the coffers. And just follow us on Instagram. That's a new one we're pushing heavy because we're only 20 followers away or something. I haven't checked today, but very close to resuming our live feed capabilities. And I would love to broadcast this show on Instagram if they will have me. Get the audience, expand the program, the TNAM Daily Show and the Agree to Disagree Show out to new audiences. So we will plan on being back tomorrow at noon Eastern time per our usual schedule, Monday through Friday. So hit like, hit subscribe, share the show with a friend. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Signing out from everybody in appreciation for everybody out there in the TNAM universe. I appreciate you. I love you. And we'll talk to you again soon. Take care, everybody. Peace.
Your guide to the truth. TheNewAmericanMedia.com.